What if you could take the full Batman mythology? I'm talking every major story, big or small, every character, all the little details and nuances that have made this iconic series what it has been for nearly 100 years at this point, and boil it down to just 100 stories. Something that is more easily digestible, where people can get an idea of what this gargantuan franchise is all about without having to watch every single movie and every single episode of every single television series and read thousands upon thousands of comic books. Welcome. I am Tony Mango, and I present to you a project that is, in general, called the Batman Blueprint. But more specifically, for the name of this particular series, The Batman, A Nighttime Story. 100 records from the Wayne Foundation archives. What is this? Well, to be getting into more of the specifics, we need to go back in time, and I need to explain what the core concept of the superhero blueprints is. And funny enough, it all starts back to when I was playing with my action figures as a kid. Whether it was Batman, Power Rangers, or even my pro wrestling figures, I used to lay them all out when it was time to play and organize a bit of an outline in my head of where I wanted to go, what I wanted to start with, where I wanted to end, all the little battles along the way, and the twists and the turns and the swerves of the plot. And my goal was to try to tell as epic of a story as I possibly could before it was time for me to pack it all up and eat dinner or go to bed. Fast forward to when I'm a teenager and the X-Men and Spider-Man movies start coming out. And this is blowing my mind. We're finally getting these characters up on the big screen, but I can't help but to think, if I were planning out a film trilogy or a series, then what villains would I use? What stories could I do to maximize the potential of telling who this character is? And how could you, over a dozen stories of X-Men, not get to Mr. Sinister yet? He's great. What are we doing? Clearly, if there's a Ninja Turtles trilogy, they fight Shredder in the first, Bebop and Rocksteady and Baxter Stockman in the second, and Krang and the Technodrome in the third, right? Well, eventually those outlines started to get bigger and bigger and bigger and take on a life of their own, until I realized that what would make sense is to call them a blueprint for the character as a whole. And this brings me to my starting point of all this, which is Batman. And while I have concepts and some pretty in-depth breakdowns for all the things that you can see in the previous graphic and more, including a Spider-Man blueprint, a blueprint for Superman, X-Men, Avengers, the Justice League, a condensed form of the James Bond franchise, a rewrite of the 6 Star Wars films, and even a 13 feature film Power Rangers epic that I am actually writing in full screenplays at the moment. This all did start with Batman, because he is my personal favorite character of any possible character in any media, in any franchise, in any form whatsoever. Now, I am no historian, and I will never present myself as the authoritarian on any of these subjects. I have not read every single comic issue that has ever been produced. I cannot quote to you the most minute details of which page of which issue that Wally West was officially declared the new Flash, or debate the power level difference between World Breaker Hulk and Rune King Thor. Go to somebody like Comics Explained for more of that. He's fantastic. But I do, in fact, do my research. And I am organized, sometimes painfully. And I am passionate. And I am a dedicated fan. And a storyteller with a gift to consolidate. And I think that I am the perfect medium between the casual audience and the deep knowledge that the hardcore fan base would really appreciate without alienating the people that are approaching this as a newcomer. I don't think you need to placate just one of those two extremes. And my goal here is to incorporate as much as I possibly can in as small of a package as I possibly can. How do I take a story that's a huge arc like No Man's Land, and I keep the concept, but I maybe condense it and maybe even merge it with some of the other stories that are out there? How do I take a little detail like Alfred making Bruce some soup because he has a cold because he's been fighting Mr. Freeze like they do in Bruce Timm's Batman the Animated Series, and fold that into something bigger. I can take the good ideas from the bad stories and rewrite them. I can take the great ideas from the great stories and take those beats and apply them in a different way that can work with the overall history and a condensed format, and really make what I consider the gold standard, where people can approach this series as a crash course and come out of it feeling like they know the character inside and out. And the little things matter along the way as well. In some ways, those are some of the most fun pieces of the puzzle to put together. Now, this project is in no way currently affiliated with DC, and the same applies to all the other different franchises, but I would like for it to be. So if you like what you see out of this and you want to see more come out of these, then I'm going to need you to help spread the word. Share this on social media with the hashtag BatmanBlueprint, hashtag HIREMANGODCCOMICS, and be sure to tag DC Comics and Batman and any of the other creators or anybody that you think might be interested in checking this out and hearing about the Batman Blueprint project and the superhero blueprints in general. And tell them about this idea so it can build up some steam. Who knows, maybe this project can become an animated series, or a comic book, or an audio drama, or something live action, a film, a television show. The possibilities are endless. And you can directly sponsor the further creation of this by donating to the Patreon, patreon.com/fanboysanonymous, to at least get more videos of what you're going to see here. But in the meantime, I'm going to present to you some general teasers of what I'm working with for the Batman Blueprint in particular, by reading off some of the first few story breakdowns. But before we get into that, I just need to specify that this is an unfinished project that I haven't fully written out in full scripts yet with full dialogue and so on and so forth. In fact, I'm still incorporating new ideas to it all the time because I've been working on this for a long enough time that somebody like Ghostmaker was not an actual character before. So how do I incorporate them in there? How do I take a little detail like every single cop's name from the Arkham video game series and try to put them in there? The end game here is to make this a reality in some form, but it all starts with just getting a little taste of what this is. To be a little more transparent, here are the 10 names of the volumes that I have for the Batman A Nighttime story, which are generally broken up into 10 chapters per volume. Although they may be 9, they may be 11. It all depends on what is the best possible means to tell the structure of that particular story arc. And obviously, there will be some spoilers in these titles, but I am not going to reveal everything because I want you to be able to go on the journey along the way with me. So let's start breaking down what these volumes are. Volume 1 is called Gotham Guardian. Volume 2 is called The Dark Knight. Now, no, that is not just the movie The Dark Knight being written out. It's just a name that's being appropriated in this particular story. That applies to something like Volume 3, The Caped Crusader. These are names that you've heard before, but they are going to be adjusted, and they are going to apply to the overall theme of what that volume is. When I explain what that means for Volume 4, The Dynamic Duo, you can probably tell what the theme of that one is, and a certain character that is going to be popping up on there and being a big, big part of that story. Same applies to Volume 5 with Gotham City Sirens. Pretty sure you can name at least a few women that are going to be really big on that story arc. Now, you might be a little bit more confused about Volume 6, which is called Under a Wing and a Prayer. That one does not scream out to you exactly what it is, and I won't say why, but you'll understand once you see what Volume 6 is all about. Volume 7 is when things turn worse for Batman with Knightfall. That's a very ominous title that everybody is aware of. Volume 8 is The Dark Knight Returns, and as I said before already, just because you've heard this title before does not mean that that is what the story is. Now, there may be elements of that folded into this. They might be actually elsewhere in other parts of the stories. But The Dark Knight Returns is a great title to explain what is going on in Volume 8. And then we start carrying on into the future of where this is going to end up at the very end point with Volume 9, Batman Incorporated, and the culmination of this, the finale, Volume 10, Batman Beyond. Immediately, your brain might be going to Terry McGinnis, and I'm not going to tell you whether you are right or wrong about that. Now, to further break this down, Volume 1 Gotham Guardian has 10 chapters to it. Chapter 1 being Why Do We Fall? Chapter 2, The Big Chill. Chapter 3, Guilt Trip. Chapter 4, Head of the Demon. Chapter 5, Bat Out of Hell. And I'm not going to reveal to you what chapters 6 through 10 are. We're going to wait and we're going to reveal that at a later date. With that in mind, coming soon, I will be presenting to you a general story breakdown of Volume 1, Gotham Guardian, Chapter 1, Why Do We Fall? And if you want to know what happens to kick off the Batman A Nighttime story, you're going to have to come back here and find out. So stay tuned. Same bat time, same bat channel.